Now let's talk about the other guy on the stage this week, President Cyril Cupcake Ramaphosa. Because honestly, I don't even know if underwhelming fully captures what happened over at FNB Stadium yesterday. Let me tell you something. Cyril's empty Youth Day speech is the most underwhelming thing I've heard. Underwhelming is an understatement. What am I talking about? So Ramaphosa led the official Youth Day commemoration this year at none other than FNB Stadium in Nazareth. And look, I'll give credit where it's due. The setting made sense. This year marks 50 years since the 1976 uprising. The theme was something like Reset at 50, meant to honor that generation's sacrifice and look forward to the next chapter. Good theme. Sounds noble, to be honest. Good idea on paper. Just like Ramaphosa's whole career, it sounds good on paper. And then the actual speech happened. So first Malema's speech was nonsense, and then Cyril's speech became nonsense because Cyril stood there and basically reflected on how 50 years after 1976, today's young people are still fighting, except now it's not against an apartheid education system. It's against an economy that's apparently kept its doors closed to them for too long. Real nice words, very poetic. It's very, I understand your pain, guys, and I'm here to fix it. And here's where I lose it. If I had been in that crowd, if I had been attending there as one of those young people who have heard this exact speech live and in living color from Cyril himself, in slightly different words, basically every single year, I would have started chanting, "Screw you, Cyril," the second he opened his mouth. The second he opened his mouth, I would have started chanting, "Screw you, Cyril." And I genuinely believe, I guarantee you, a chunk of young people in that stadium would have joined in on that chant. I think if I was there, I would have started, "Screw you, Cyril." People would have joined in that chant, and he would have gotten heckled through the entire speech. And honestly, that's the moment we should have been cheering, when he leaves. Not the speech, the walkout. When he's getting booed as he gives the speech and as he walks out. The moment the president of the country gets a taste of exactly how unconvinced young people are by another round of "I feel your pain" with zero follow through. Because here's the thing, it's all talk. Cyril is all talk. Cyril is all talk, and he has been all talk for years. You can stand on a stage in a medium named after a bank and talk about economic doors being closed. But what have you actually done? What tangible thing has changed for the young person sitting in that crowd, unemployed, frustrated, watching yet another politician deliver yet another beautifully worded speech that changes absolutely nothing about their actual life by the time they wake up tomorrow morning? Because after Cyril gave that speech, you want to know what changed tomorrow morning? Absolutely nothing. And can we please talk about the audacity, the sheer unfiltered audacity of Cyril Ramaphosa standing up there, acting like some sort of moral authority on accountability and good governance of all people, Mr. Palapala. Mr. Palapala, June 30th wouldn't even be a date on anyone's calendar if people actually took your leadership seriously, sir. With all due respect. The fact that there is still an ongoing rumor around the street about June 30th, the fact that your name is still tied to a scandal involving literal couches stuffed with cash, and you're up there delivering moral lectures about doors being closed and opportunities being denied. My brother in Christ, open your books first. Nobody And I mean nobody, is going to vote for the ANC because they believe in this anymore. No one's going to vote for the ANC anymore. The enthusiasm is gone. The benefit of the doubt expired years ago. At this point, the ANC is a dead horse. Every time Ramaphosa gives one of these speeches, it just reads like a man running out the clock, hoping nobody asks the follow-up question. Okay, Ramaphosa, we heard you, but what are you actually doing about any of this? What are you doing about any of this? Get impeached already, go resign, or do something decisive. But please, for the love of all of us that is watching, stop standing on stages in stadiums named after banks, giving us beautifully worded nothings. Thank you very much. Let's talk about the reset at 50 for a second. That was literally the theme of this year's commemoration of Youth Day. Reset at 50. And I keep turning that phrase over in my head because it's actually a pretty revealing choice of words, even if nobody on the planning committee intended it that way. A reset implies something was working, then broke, then needs to go back to a working state. That's reset. Definition of reset right there. But that's not exactly our situation, is it, my fellow South Africans? I will repeat, reset implies something was working, it then broke, and then it needs to go back to a working state. That's the definition of reset. But it's not exactly our situation, is it, my fellow South Africans? We didn't have a functioning youth economic inclusion that then broke and now needs a reset. What we've had is 50 years of incremental promises, 3 of which, the most recent 3 decades, were under a government that had every tool available to build something real and simply didn't deliver it at the scale required. It never worked. Ever. Ever. Imagine your toxic ex-girlfriend coming back to you and saying, look, can we reset this relationship? I think we should start over again. And then you as the guy, you're sitting there thinking, hold on, let me stop you right there, sweetie. First of all, resetting means it was working and then it broke and now we're trying to fix it again. Your relationship with me was never nice. It was toxic from the very beginning. Please. It's the same thing as this situation. So when I hear the word reset, I don't hear the word hope. I hear an admission buried inside a hopeful sounding slogan that nothing has actually moved much since 1976 in the ways that matter most for young people's economic survival. We never needed a reset. We needed a finally they delivered on the thing they've been promising for 50 years. But that doesn't fit as nicely on a banner, does it? I guess it doesn't. And then the youth got really mad because they started saying South African youth now sees themselves as a laughingstock too. I mentioned this earlier in today's episode, but I would like to sit with it for a second longer because I don't think it got nearly enough attention this week. At the official Youth Day commemoration, not some random social media post, the actual national event, youth leadership stood up and said on record that young people have become a laughingstock in their own communities. Think about how heavy that statement actually is. Not underemployed, not we're facing challenges, They said they are a laughing stock, as in the very people who are supposed to be the future of this country are being openly mocked in their own neighborhoods because of how little economic standing they've been able to build. And that statement happened on the same stage, same day as Ramaphosa's speech about doors being closed for too long. So you had within the same event an admission from youth leadership that things have gotten so bad Young people are a punchline in their own communities, immediately followed or preceded, depending how you slice the program, by the president delivering essentially the same speech he or his predecessors have been delivering for years. If that combination doesn't tell you everything you need to know about the gap between official rhetoric and actual lived reality, then I don't know what will.